G'day, freedom lovers. How are we today? Got another interesting action-packed show. Before we get into our wonderful guest, Dave Armstrong from the Living Free Movement, let's start with a good old fail of the week. So I'm going to chuck you straight into the short version of the video because we don't want to upset some people. If you want the uncensored version, you're going to have to go have a look at Rumble. But in the meantime, here's the censored version.
I thank the Deputy Leader of the Opposition for her rhetoric.
What's this? An ultrasound in an hour?
Yeah, she's pregnant.
Based on the fact that I don't have a work permit, I have a work permit. No! He's fucking choking me! He's choking me!
Dinosaur and dickhead Ray Martin.
If you're a dinosaur, a dickhead.
You know, that terrible overlord, Brad Hazard.
Anti-vaxxers obviously live in another universe.
I know I'm supposed to say that I respect people's choices and reasons. I don't. You don't get to choose.
Can someone please provide me with a definition of what a woman is? Department of Health, definition of a man, definition of a woman.
We should take that on notice.
You're going to take on notice the question of what a woman is?
No. So we should take that on notice. So we should take that on notice. So we should take that on notice. So we should take
So this is our lovely fail of the week. This person who's brought in this, I guess you call it the toxic masculinity bill. You know, of course, they're going with some wonderful wording here to combat harmful gender stereotypes. We just opened it up with so many options. I just couldn't help myself. It needed to be done. But we will see more on that. And now that the funding's been approved, we will have to look in to see exactly what they do. But time will tell. In the meantime, though, our guest today, Dave Armstrong. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming alongside. It was awesome to meet you down at Apocalypso. Did you enjoy the event?
Oh, it was great. It was great to catch up with everyone there. We had a few Living Free members there and just to meet a whole bunch of great crew and yourself and a couple of others, Dennis up there. It was really good to meet everyone.
Yeah, it was a great event. Hopefully we can get onto it again next year and it'll be a little bit bigger. But yeah, it was awesome just to sort of get out there amongst nature and yeah, all the way out, so far out from civilization, even by Townsvillian and Cairns standards. Like that was like way out bush sort of thing. So very, very awesome. But anyway, one of the reasons I've got you in here, I guess, let's start a little bit with, so one of the questions I like to ask is that pivotal awakening sort of moment. You know, I know it's sort of a growing adventure as you start to unravel the lies as we, could look at them in one way and deceptions in another and half truths in another. But what would you say was that pinnacle moment where you go, hang on, something's not right here?
For me, well, partly Port Arthur massacre, to be honest. When I was a little bit younger, I grew up in Hobart, and there was a few people that were killed on that day, family, friends, and so that was part of it. But I didn't realize that until probably 10 years after it happened. Maybe when I read a book and a bit more information. So, so that was part of it. But then the birth of my first daughter, and we had a guy called Nick Patterson who was one of our athletes. And I had a high performance sports center and he was posting this information about how bad vaccines were and everything. And I can remember looking at these Facebook posts going, I hope he's crazy. But I better look into it.
And this is pre-COVID, yeah?
Oh, well and truly. So this is 8 years ago, somewhere around there. And so we were good friends back there. And then I just started reading some of the things that he was posting and decided that it was my duty as a father to look into that, and hoping that the outcome was going to be that he was crazy and that, life would go on as normal. And I didn't find that he was crazy at all. And that was probably the pivotal step where I was like, well, hang on, what's going on here? we owned a sports medicine centre for a decade as well, sports performance centre. And, I was pretty asleep, I guess, looking back at it. I was open to anything, as far as those sorts of things. But that was probably the unraveling for me, was looking into that and going, okay, well, what about this vaccine? What about this vaccine? And then, well, this is terrible. All these kids are being affected. How do we then, help get the word out? And then that was obviously what everyone's going through more so now with, trying to talk to other people, and people just shut down, including work, people who worked for me and high-end medical professionals or whatever. And it didn't go down too well when I shared my concerns about these things. And that was, the start of the unraveling.
Rightio, and that's led you into the living free movement, which is obviously different to living free. Because when I was looking it up the other day, I'm like, hang on, that's not those guys. That looks like an American version. So, did they beat you to the punch? Was it inspiration what the American living free mob are doing, or was this just something that just popped up and you gone, hang on, they got the same name, we better call it living free movement? What happened there?
I actually don't know. I don't know anything about them, to be honest.
Oh,
So,
okay.
never,
There's another living free mob out there, I discovered.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I didn't do too much looking. So we've been around for a few years now. But yeah, we just came up with a living free movement. We wanted to be more about a movement, and those key words were kind of the overall view of what it was about. But we actually didn't start off as living free. We started off as Heal Me, and Heal Me was more about my health journey. And then I joined up with a guy called Tom Barnett. And we started talking about the health things. And then, COVID came along, and there was a requirement to sort of help our members at least learn more about the law and deal with the jobs and that sort of thing of holding position with that sort of thing. So we then started Lawful Me. We brought Nick Patterson in, and then another guy called Darren Dixon, who you're well aware of as well.
Yeah.
And then
good friend.
It sort of grew. So we had Heal Me, Lawful Me, then we started Grow Me, Academy, Optimize Me, Spiritual Me. So we ended up with all these sort of platforms, which then we did the overall brand as Living Free Movement, because all of those represented, I guess, the key elements of what it was to living free. It was about, taking responsibility in all of these areas and educating ourselves and, helping each other on that journey of not being reliant on the medical system, or, growing our own food, or learning spiritually what we should be, looking into, and, all of those things. So that's really where the overall brand came from afterwards. And so we ended up with these Me platforms and put it all under the one brand of Living Free Movement.
Nice. So you've dissected into many different parts there. Obviously, I mean, one of the things that pops up to me straight away, because you guys are generally more Melbourne based, correct?
Not really. Tom's up in Byron. We've got people all over the place. We've got people internationally that are part of Living Free as well. We've got people over in Perth. So we've got presenters wherever the good talent is. We try to get hold of it. But I'm in Melbourne, and Nick Patterson's in Melbourne, and Darren's in Melbourne. So they're the three that are in Melbourne. But yeah, Tom's in sort of Byron area, James and Sarah in Perth, or a bit south of Perth. They're the Grow Me crew. And then we've got some people that do trusts and, unincorporated associations and that sort of stuff in Canada and the US. And yeah, we're a part of a few different things.
Yeah, cool. So the Grow Me element is obviously sort of a gardening sort of thing. How do you go in a more city-based scenario with growing food? Me
personally, terribly.
Yeah.
I pretty much kill everything, but there's lots for me to learn there, to be honest. I probably should be focusing on the learning there, but it's off-grid living as well. It's alternative housing. It's a range of different things. But yeah, some great guests, and James and Sarah are also building their own community over there, where it's like a community living stuff. So they're sharing their experiences as they build, this this land out with a bunch of other people, and they're setting up all different growing and setting up dams and all of that sort of thing as well. So so that's pretty exciting, and they share their journey and they're much better at interviewing in that area because they're much more knowledgeable about growing than what I am.
Yeah, cool. So obviously it helps having a few people on the team to be able to, diversify all those concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, and this is part of it as well. Like our community itself is actually really good because there's a lot of people that we interview that then become members, and then they share their knowledge with the community ongoing. And, so we've got people that are, part of the health side of it as well. There's a guy over in Canada who runs Activation Products. His name's Ian Clark. Jules McKee, who's she's in the Byron sort of area as well. So, other people sort of bring their knowledge in, and then the whole community helps each other learn this stuff because, to be honest, no one's got all the answers, and we're all trying to figure out our way as to what that is to live free. And a lot of that's pulling away and self-development of who we are, and accountability and responsibility. And, how do we then do that and be practically able to slowly implement those things into our life? Because as we start to wake up, if you like, we start to realize that there's a whole bunch of things that aren't good for us that's been fed to us for a long time. And there's a whole bunch of knowledge that we should probably have if we want to make sure that the government's not knocking on our door too much, and, these sorts of things. So, but when you look at the whole thing, it becomes quite overwhelming. So you've kind of got to go with your interest to start off with and just unravel, and you kind of end up in the same place. It doesn't really matter where you start on this journey, that you start working out that the world is sort of really more a spiritual battle between good and evil. And the more you learn and the more you take independence and, responsibility and accountability for your life, the less all of that stuff matters. And that's really the interesting part of this journey, is that, we start off thinking that we need to fight everything, and then we work out that we really need to just build something better. And that's really what we've focused on doing.
It's definitely taking that whole build back better concept, but, doing it properly, as opposed to sort of, what I would describe their idea of build back better to be, building a tyrannical overlord kind of one world government,
Well,
so
not even build back better. It's like almost build the way that we were meant to build without the corruption, because there's a lot of elements that we need in the current system, but we just need to remove the bad stuff from it. And so we can kind of duplicate what's good in that system and then leave out the bad stuff. And then it becomes a choice, like having the jab or not having the jab. It's a choice. Do you want to be more independent and, from these systems, or do you want to be connected? It's a choice. So what we're trying to do is really provide an alternative option where people can choose to learn and take more responsibility. And it really is about them making that choice and going through that journey, because the journey is actually probably the key to it all in being able to improve yourself, is actually going through something. It's almost like a birth of some sort where you've got to be pushed through, and it's hard. And then that, by being hard, you come through the other side, and it's quite different. And it's a little bit Wizard of Oz, really. Everything taught that, you pull back those curtains and they really don't have the power that they make out that they've got. And there really is smoke and mirrors, and it's all about lies and deception and fear and pushing all of these things onto you so that they can control you. So the moment that you decide that you're not going to be in fear and you're going to do things independently to them, they don't actually have the control that you thought that they had originally. And so all of that fear was based on what they decided to project onto the world. And we accepted that as an invitation to, bring that into our lives. So to unwind that, we just have to basically not consent to it on different levels, and start independently working with each other, to find solutions that we don't need, them, if you like. That's the big concept of what's going on.
It's definitely an interesting concept, though, hey, because like the system's definitely trying to impose itself at every turn, and particularly the last few years, which is definitely woken a hell of a lot more people up than any one of us ever could have beforehand. And I always like to take that moment and give thanks to the assholes and the tyrants who have imposed this upon the world, because they've done such a great thing for the movement as far as waking people up has gone. Where was I going with that? Lost my moment there. Oh, yeah, that's right. I love the Wizard of Oz analogy, because it's kind of one of those moments that I've always compared that in a lot of cases, right down to the fact they've got a straw man in there, and that was actually came up. A friend of mine sent me a link to a video comparing how the Wizard of Oz is so amazingly relevant to what's transpired, right down to concepts of sort of the Tin Man. He's been worked to the point where he's seized. He can no longer go further. And I think there's a lot of people who are definitely kind of feeling that pain. And, the idea of just getting that courage again, almost kind of, you look at some of the politicians in the way that they're cowardice, in the sense that there's a lot, I hear from people like Malcolm Roberts and a few others who are like, they're not that evil. They're just stupid and weak and cowardly. They want to do the right thing, but they haven't got the balls to do it. And that's where that cowardly lion element really came in. And of course, I think it was Toto. What was that? It was a definition to the word Toto in Latin. It's escaped me. Yeah, the little dog. The word Toto is a Latin phrase, something to do with sort of being able to see more clearly. In a sense, it actually had relevance to the point where it's almost as if the writer had a precognition of what was to come, or perhaps some sort of access to a knowledge base of what they were attempting to do. And I think a lot of people like to point the fingers at the baby boomers and things like that too, who they lived a very happy, comfortable sort of existence and didn't need to ask questions, but I think even before that, it was possibly more obvious certain things were happening in certain places. And as time's gone on, people have gone even more to sleep, like that. Again, the Poppy sort of element where Dorothy falls asleep sort of thing. We've been dazed and confused, during this sort of mid-90s to early 80s sort of a period, And I mean, for me, like, I found heavy metal to be quite an eye-opener for a big awakening for me. There were so many lyrical concepts in heavy metal that really pointed out that something was wrong. But it was amazing how many people were heavy metal fans who just like to be cool and, yeah, I'm going to bang my head, and if you're not into metal, you're not my friend kind of attitude, but never really listened, And that brings into the Bible concept of, Matthew 13:13, where in seeing they do not see, hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand.
Well, I think that look, to get to the core of it, that is the truth, is that we are powerful beings, that they don't want us to get to that knowledge. And so when you look at everything, it's about removing us from that. So, the news and the fear and the jabs and all of those things is to remove us from that. All of these distractions, the thing that, the advice that I got in trying to work out what that true self is, that God inside you, whatever you want to call it, to get that direction, is that it's a whisper in a room full of people. And, when you think about that analogy, you're trying to listen to this thing, but there's so much distraction and noise that you can't hear what it is. But if we start removing and peeling back those things, we can start to hear that voice and realize that we are the actual powerful being. They're scared of us, and they're scared of this awakening as we realize what that truly is. So, even when you go into everything that's happening on an international stage, going back to that Port Arthur stuff, all of these things, they've all been set up to create a fear, and the fear's been designed to be random so that we don't put it together. But we've interviewed a guy called Ole Demigard recently on the platform, and he's going to do a regular series of unlocking some of these conspiracies, if you like, that's occurred over the last 42 years. His first one was JFK, but he actually shows how just about all of them were run by the same people. the links and the team that was actually developed to go across, and they would fly them to go and create these random events where we would think that they're random and there's, all this stuff to fear. But I don't think that the world's as bad as what they make out. And that's all to keep us distracted from knowing who we are. And so the more that you realize that everything is a distraction from keeping you from knowing who you are, and why would they want to do that? Because we are powerful. And, that is the big secret, that, all of this is just a distraction to keep us away from knowing who we are and working out that they don't have the power. We don't need them, them in inverted commas. And we just need to take responsibility, stop being fed off the teat of the government, and create a world that we want to see. And they become irrelevant to the whole bigger picture.
Definitely. And it's a bit of a trick, hey, to try and turn off from those things. There's so much of it is very distracting, and a lot of it is definitely very much in your face. And now we've got an economic situation that's really is tightening down on a lot of people. Is that something that the Living Free movement sort of work on, helping people sort of get their economic systems up into play as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually so one thing is that I've got a background in business. I mentioned I've had a couple of companies, which I can go into later. But, I used to own 3 companies before my waking up period. And then basically all of them were in the system somewhat. One, I still sort of run and do adventures and that sort of thing. But the idea of, helping people create their own businesses and doing it in the private, where you don't have to pay tax and you don't have to do all of those things, when you understand that responsibility of trusts and, unincorporated associations and all of those things, you don't have to share that. You can create what it is. But what we need to be able to do is also create an economy within each other. So we're actually creating a marketplace as well, a private marketplace where people can buy and sell goods and services. So that's actually on the stage for next year that we'll release that. And that's the big thing, is like, we still need all of these things. Like, we need someone to look after our pets. We've got that sort of thing on the platform. There's someone who comes and looks after my dog, does it all privately, charge way less than it was to go to the vet and do all of those things, and we promote them, and then we promote others. We have them on the platform and we talk about what they're doing. So a lot of people have actually earned an income off just us talking and showing what they're doing, and they're full, in their books and created their own businesses. So the next part is to then develop an entrepreneurship sort of aspect to the platform and help people learn about that, because we've already been teaching about trusts and all of that for a while. So how to do your banking outside of that. And then, the idea is just trade and support each other within that community and allow people that independence from, what's going on externally. And then obviously, eventually people will come together and hopefully bring down that cost of living in different ways, with potentially community living. That's not for me personally, but others are certainly into that. And, that's a great option. Like, we're building a health retreat out in Byron as well, and we're bringing down the cost of healthcare. So, for me, my waking up to, or starting of Heal Me, was because of a cancer diagnosis. And I looked into alternative treatments, and for me to go to Mexico, it was going to cost 50 to 60,000. And, that sort of thing we can actually do. We can bypass a lot of the big pharma stuff, and we can actually reduce it to probably about 10,000 for the same alternative treatment option. And we can do it all here in Australia. And, that's working with compounding pharmacists, having a look at their blood work, like really high-end people, but we're just working, and none of it's, illegal in their system. It's just working smarter and bringing the people with real talent in to sort of utilize that and get access to the good compounding pharmacy stuff, because things like vitamin C have a shelf life of a few days, and most people don't realize that. So when they go to an alternative doctor who's selling vitamin C IVs,
so it's an intravenous sort of a scenario, as opposed to just like a fruit drink sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get the IV. So for something like cancer treatment, it's a really popular alternative treatment is vitamin C IV. But, you know, those options that are currently available, often the shelf life, you know, they can't hold on to the product. And then when I first started to look into it, it was basically like one group brought it into Australia, and they just happened to be linked to Big Pharma, and they charge
What a surprise.
3 times as much, you know, but you go to the chemist, right?
Shocked.
Vitamin C is really cheap, right? And
Yeah,
then
you'd think so.
decide you want to put it in an IV, and they're going to charge you $200 a bag. And you're like, are you kidding? You know, it cost me $5 down at the chemist. Not saying it's probably the quality that I want to inject into myself, but
Yeah.
you can do a higher grade quality for 10, $15, you know, and then sell it on to me, double your money, triple your money. I don't care. But, you know, when you're charging $200 for something that you know doesn't cost that much, you've got saline plus some vitamin C, you know, and then obviously you've got a nurse and you've got all of these things. But, you know, it shouldn't be the prices for us to do alternative treatment. But that's what I found in my health journey was everything that was alternative and was good for you cost a fortune. And if I wanted chemotherapy, I could do it tomorrow. And, you know, it was just crazy. And, you know, that's the sort of thing we've got to fix. Like there's so much good out there. You know, an example being like a naturopathy course. They used to have like really good courses. But the courses now, they've pulled out a lot of the good stuff, and they make everyone, you know, have the flu vaccine to be able to do the course. So like all we have to do is add in the good stuff back in, remove the fact that you have to have the flu vaccine, and educate people on the dangers of overloading the systems and stuff, and bring back a good version of it. And then, you know, once again, the community has the option to go, do you want A or do you want B? Like we don't have to fight and take down the old system. We just need to create an alternative, better system that gives people the option to not have those things in their life. And that's really the exciting part is actually this is a huge opportunity for us to be able to create the world we want to see, especially for our kids and future generations. But it's got nothing to do with fighting and, you know, trying to better the old system. It's just, let's just dump that system. It's mostly corrupt. Let's just create the better stuff, and people will naturally, who are attracted to that, come across to that system, and we create a separate economy where those people are rewarded for what they're doing, and we don't have to be worried about the cost of living so much. We create our own aspects. So, and, you know, trade, barter, all of those things are definitely good ways to do it, but we don't have to take it down and fight it and do all of those things, which I originally, to be honest, thought we did. So that was my journey as well, but I learned differently across the way. So I'm not sitting there going, I'm judging those who are doing it. I'm sitting there going, I tried that. I set up a political party in Victoria. You know, I went across and fought child trafficking in the US and Mexico stuff. I took that stuff on. I created websites for anti-vaccination stuff and shared that. I set up other freedom groups and used my business knowledge for that. I went to all the protests. I helped set up the peacemakers in Melbourne with Nick Patterson, and did those things. We set up a private equity group. You know, we've done all of these things, but really what I've come to realize is that we don't need to fight what's bad. We just need to do something better.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people I've been talking to in the last, I suppose, few years really, and even some very recently that I hope are really listening to that too, because it's kind of what I've been trying to get across for quite some time is that we just need to build a better system, and sooner or later theirs will just collapse due to lack of interest. You know, I'll take this moment to say to YouTube watchers that you might want to check in the description, have a look at the link tree scenario there, and come and follow us on one of the other more free platforms, because I'm starting to feel this conversation is going to get us blocked or banned or something on YouTube the way it's going at the moment. So we might give it a 2-3 minute warning, and then we will unleash with a little bit more of the intense truth elements. But yeah, so everybody who's on YouTube, you might want to jump over. I know it's such an easy platform, and it's hard to let go of old things, and that's kind of a little bit of what we're talking about here, is learning to let go of those old systems that are no longer working for us and moving towards a better system, even if you've got to create one yourself. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing somebody create like a more Australian version of some of these social media outlets as well. I think that'd be really good to see.
Well, what our platform is, we do live streams on there. We have guests on there all the time. We've got so much content. Like, the amount of content that's on our platform is off the charts, and all these experts that are in there, it's awesome. And the interesting thing is, I never set out to create that. It happened, and you can feel it in there that there's something special about it. And so that's the interesting thing, is I think that this is being led. And I think that there are other groups. I'm on the board with a group called Empower Movement. Another interesting thing, and a topic that I'm happy to go into. But there's certain things that I think are being led at a higher level, and there is a bigger plan. And I think those things are going to start coming to the top. And those that aren't so good, that are pushing fear and doing those things, they're going to start to go, further and further down the track. So that's my belief personally of where the world's going.
Yeah. Should I answer one of those things? There's somebody here has gone Rumble. Rumble is kind of like YouTube, if you haven't heard of it before, except they don't block and ban people. It's a lot more open. So if you haven't heard of Rumble before, I definitely advise getting over and having a look at that one. I'm not sure what Project Matilda is. Have you heard of that?
No.
No. If you want to drop a little bit more about Project Matilda, you might be able to educate us. That'd be awesome. I'm always up for learning things. Cool. Glad you're loving it. Well, I think that's our warning up. So we're going to drop away from YouTube so I don't have to feel so concerned. But yeah, in the link tree there, you'll find us somewhere. YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, Go For Your Life, anywhere but YouTube today, because sorry, we just can't work with that platform.